Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking an early first look at the brand new Community Day Electros in the Open Great League. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Smudgy B, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, the new legacy fast move that it gets access to is Volt Switch. Previously, its best fast move was Spark, so Volt Switch represents an improvement in both damage and energy per turn. But the question will be, how improved is Electros overall? So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at the Community Day Electros in the Open Great League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a very neutral lead, Annihilate versus Goodra. Annihilate farming up, opponent tries for a potential Ice Punch catch onto Feraligatr, but Smudgy is not running it. He fires the Shadow Ball, it connects, opponent tries to call a bait, and Electros gets the snipe with a Volt Switch. Electros is now up energy, opponent not going to send in Goodra, instead choosing to send in Shadow Typhlosion. Firing off the Dragon Claw is going to be able to grab the shield from the opponent, and this is where Volt Switch over Spark is a definite improvement. Volt Switch able to do more damage per turn, but also have faster energy generation. So Electros is actually able to force both shields from the Typhlosion as it farms down. As we may have noticed by that neutral Incinerate damage, Electros definitely not the tankiest Pokemon around. In comes the Annihilate, calling the Thunder Punch, but the opponent does not bait. They full send the Blast Burn. Cresselia going to be committing the shield. This Typhlosion is low enough that it will be able to be knocked out with a Grass Knot. Opponent staying in, hoping to make another Blast Burn, but Cresselia says no. Grass Knot picks up the knockout. In comes Goodra, and Aqua Tails just will not do enough damage here. They end up going for a Thunder Punch, so it looks like maybe running Thunder Punch and Draco Meteor, but they knew they just can't get to the Draco Meteor. Moonblast from the Cresselia knocks out the Goodra and takes the Game 1 win. There's a decent lead in the next match, Annihilate versus Skarmory. Ideally, you would love if the Skarmory ended up switching out at some point, so that way you could realign it onto Electros later in the game. Night Slash bait on charge stack priority is successful and grabs the shield from the opponent. Annihilate now in an advantageous position, commits the shield, and there's the switch out into the Swampert, so they're probably running the typical Skarmory double Mud Boy strategy. Swampert is going to connect with the harder hitting Earthquake. Earthquake less efficient than a Hydro Cannon, but more overall damage. Cresselia will overfarm, fire off the Grass Knot, opponent committing the shield, trying to make a play for switch advantage, but the interesting thing for the opponent here is a Hydro Cannon will not KO, so they were trying to make a play for switch, but the gamble doesn't pay off, and they're going to lose their entire Swampert to that Grass Knot. In comes Skarmory. Skarmory looking for a big farm down. This Grass Knot not going to be doing a lot for the Cresselia, but the Skarmory not going to be able to do a lot against Electros. In the back, there is the second Mud Boy. Whiscash enters the field of play. Dragon Claw by Electros is going to get a little bit of chip damage. In comes Annihilate, and Annihilate will be met with energy from the Whiscash. Whiscash goes for the Mud Bomb. It is going to be a successful shield by the Annihilate, and Annihilate will return fire with the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball connects. Goodbye, Whiscash. Annihilate trying to get to the Night Slash, but Skarmory says no. Skarmory picks up the knockout with the Sky Attack. In comes Electros. Electros gets the farm down and takes the win. Hopping into the next match, Annihilate. That's another electric type, but that's not an electric type I was expecting to see in the Open Great League, a Unova Stunfisk. Unova Stunfisk, a very powerful pick in limited metas, not used as often in the Open Leagues. Annihilate is not baiting here. Unova Stunfisk has some pretty decent bulk, firing off the Shadow Ball, and the Shadow Ball will connect, and we see a switch and a catch onto the Cresselia. Cresselia able to absorb that discharge damage. In comes Skeledirge, and this is a bit unfortunate, as Skeledirge is unfortunately a wall to this Cresselia moveset. Cresselia not opting to run Future Sight, and that does prove to be problematic here. Skeledirge farms up a massive amount of energy. This Skeledirge is actually on Crunch. Crunch is going to set up a nice farm down for them, but by not having the Shadow Ball, that does allow Cresselia to make it to a second Moonblast. And now the Skeledirge is potentially in a range where Electros might be able to Volt Switch down. In comes Electros. Unfortunately, the Skeledirge has so much energy here. Skeledirge goes for the Disarming Voice, and there's another charge attack right after. They're going to go for the Crunch. Electros gets the farm down and exits with quite a bit of energy. In comes Unova Stunfisk. Electros at back-to-back Dragon Claws here, firing off the Dragon Claw. Opponent commits the shield, but they're going to have to double shield if they want to preserve Ufisk. Dragon Claw is going to be able to pick up the knockout. In the back, it's another electric type. It is Lantern. And opponent is going to be firing off the Surf and forcing the final shield from Electros. Electros continuing the farm. Electros going for a Dragon Claw bait, hoping to grab the shield from the opponent. The Dragon Claw bait is successful, and now we see a switch out to Annihilate. Annihilate trying to make it to a Night Slash here. The Surf onto the Annihilate does not KO, and this Night Slash plus the Thunderbolt should mean game over, as the Night Slash is going to be getting that Lantern low, and Electros left with the Thunderbolt loaded here. This is only neutral damage onto the Lantern, but it will secure the knockout, and that's game over. Terrible lead in the next match, Annihilate versus Gligar. We're going to see a save switch to Cresselia. Cresselia farming up energy, but Gligar will strike first with a dig. The dig will connect. Cresselia returning fire with the Moonblast. Moonblast not going to be enough to knock out here, but the goal is you just want to get damage. Opponent makes a very interesting switch, saving the Gligar for later and choosing to bring in Azumarill. But the Cresselia has taken a lot of damage in this fight already, which means that this is not nearly as bad for the Azumarill as it typically would be. Azumarill goes for the Play Rough. That's going to get Cresselia low. Opponent was hoping for a Play Rough and farm down, but the Cresselia able to survive, make it to a Grass Knot, and force a shield. Down goes Cresselia, but now it is Electros time. Electros going to commit the shield as Azumarill fires off its energy. It is going to be the Play Rough from the Azumarill. Can Electros potentially farm down here? That'd be a huge farm down. Not gonna risk it. It looked like Azumarill was gonna be able to make a move. Going for the Dragon Claw just to secure the knockout. Back in comes Gligar. There's quite a bit of energy on Electros. Electros will fire off the Dragon Claw. That's going to get the Gligar low. Opponent switches out and sends in Annihilate. The overfarm by Electros, going for the Dragon Claw. The Dragon Claw does get no-shielded by the opponent, but Electros is just able to consistently apply pressure here. It is spammy with this new fast move. And now, in comes Annihilate. You can just KO with the Night Slash. Opponent realizes they do not have a win con, and they will resign the match. Next match, this is looking difficult. Leading Annihilate into Skeleturge, and this team is very, very weak to Skeleturge. Skeleturge will go for the Disarming Voice. Annihilate going to build up past the Shadow Ball and bait with the Night Slash. The Night Slash bait is successful. Opponent going to be firing off another Disarming Voice, and just like that, in a blink of an eye, both shields in the match are used. Opponent sends in Lickitung, trying to absorb energy from the Annihilate. Smudgy's going to hold on to all that energy and send in Cresselia. Cresselia firing off the Moonblast, fishing for that very small chance at a debuff. Lickitung is going to consistently apply pressure with Body Slam after Body Slam, thanks to that terrific pacing from Lick. Going to be firing off more energy. The Body Slam will connect. Cresselia going to need 2 more charge attacks to KO here. The Moonblast will get the Lickitung low, but it's not going to be enough to knock out. However, this could potentially set up farm for Electros, as the Cresselia is able to make another move. That is going to knock out the Lickitung, but this just sets up farm for the Skeleturge. So I honestly like the switch out here into Electros. You can't afford to give the Skeleturge any more energy. Going for the Dragon Claw, that's shielded up by the opponent. They're going to switch out, and in the back, it's a Ferrothorn. Oh no, disaster strikes. Electros is completely walled. Power Whip picks up the KO. Annihilate has energy, but that energy is needed to try and combat the Skeleturge. In comes the Annihilate. Annihilate firing off the Shadow Ball, but this energy was needed elsewhere. But there's no other way to get rid of Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn, tries for the catch. But unfortunately, Ferrothorn picks up the KO. Cresselia gets the Psycho Cut down, but Dirge has a move. In comes the Skeleturge. Skeleturge is going to be able to take this win as they connect with Disarming Voice. Hopping into the next match, Annihilate. Oh no, we are right back where we started. Now, this is a reason why having Future Sight on Cresselia could be nice if you're running it with Annihilate. Just purely based on the fact that Skeleturge is a huge problem. The Annihilate is able to grab a shield from the opponent massively overfarming, and they're going to fire off Disarming Voice. We do see the shield from the Annihilate. Annihilate now going to be firing off another Night Slash bait, again, fishing for that shield, and able to get the shield, again, Very similar to last game. Opponent saving the Skeletor, switching out into Lickitung, but this time Smudgy is making an adjustment. He's sending in Electros. As we see Electros, unfortunately 2 body slams will be enough to KO with the lick damage. It's not the bulkiest thing around. The Thunderbolt does a lot of damage though, can't make the Dragon Claw, as with the energy advantage, Lickitung is going to be able to secure that knockout. Unfortunately, you can't bring in the Annihilate. The Annihilate is too low. You're forced to send in the Cresselia. However, Switch Clock will be up by the time the opponent sends in Skeledirge, so you can potentially look to try and combo play the Skeledirge once the opponent brings it onto the field of play. Cresselia, massively over farming. Lickitung going to be able to connect with Body Slam after Body Slam. Cresselia farming up to 100 energy, and Grass Knot will be able to secure the KO. Grass Knot gets the knockout. In the back, it's Abomasnow, and Abomasnow is now going to be hit with the Moonblast, but this is not a problem for the opponent. This is where they want to absorb this energy. Cresselia farming up quite a bit. Abomasnow potentially going to be able to force the final shield here from the Cresselia with an Icy Wind. It is a CMP tie. This Moonblast I don't think is going to be enough to KO. It will get the Abomasnow low. The switch to the Annihilate, the counter down, and leaving with the Shadow Ball loaded. The Annihilate able to flip the script after losing to the Skeletor lead last game, and this game able to take the win. Hopping into the next match, we've got Annihilate and we've got Goodra. Last time the Goodra ended up switching out, and it did not go well for them. They got aligned onto Cresselia, but this opponent is choosing to stay in. Massive overfarm from the Annihilate. Annihilate baiting with the Night Slash. Goodra falls for it, commits the shield. Annihilate not going to make the Shadow Ball, forced to settle for the chip damage of a second Night Slash. So the opponent is going to be able to win switch advantage in this match. In comes Electros. Electros just looking to get an energy advantage. Goodra is going to Thunder Punch here. Looks like the opponent either is running Thunder Punch Draco or may have misclicked. In comes a Lantern. Lantern not an amazing response to Electros. Electros connects with the Thunderbolt. That does significant damage. And if they're bringing in a Lantern, I honestly like this shield. It's like, what do they have that's worse into this in the back? The opponent is going to switch out, and it's a Vigoroth. So Vigoroth, honestly, a better answer than Lantern to the Electros, but Vigoroth, what it does not want to see is Cresselia. This is basically the neutral matchup in which Vigoroth does the worst. Vigoroth up energy can make it pretty close, but in this instance, the Vigoroth is down a shield, so there's just nothing the opponent can do. The Moonblast will connect. There's the attack drop as well. Opponent realizes their fate, and they will concede the match. We've got a nightmare lead in the next match. Annihilate versus Wigglytuff. The save switch to Cresselia, answered with Charge-a-Bug. This is going to be a very uphill battle, as unfortunately, Electros, just by virtue of being so glassy, is not going to do amazingly against a Charmer either. Charge-a-Bug will be firing off X-Scissor after X-Scissor in this matchup. Cresselia unable to make it to the Moonblast. Cresselia going to try and make a play for switch advantage here, throwing one Psycho Cut and the Moonblast. Opponent does have high incentive to match shields though, because Wigglytuff into Annihilate is just such a dominating matchup for them, where even if Annihilate gets energy, the energy won't go anywhere. Back in comes the Annihilate. Annihilate can potentially look for a full counter down here, but again, this energy doesn't really go anywhere. You really have to hope that it's like a Skarmory in the back, and the opponent ends up blind switching out of the Wigglytuff, but this is going to be an uphill battle. In comes Electros in the back. Okay, that's just game over. It's Swampert. The Mud Boy in the back. That's absolutely heartbreaking. I believe in the main series, Electros has an ability called Levitate, where it's actually immune to ground moves, which would be a cool addition to it in Go, just purely based off the fact that its typing, being a mono-electric, doesn't do it any favors. But in this game, ground is very much super effective, and unfortunately, that team was very super effective at getting rid of Electros. Hopping into the final match, a familiar sight, Annihilate versus Skarmory. Same game plan as before, baiting with the Night Slash. The Night Slash bait gets no shielded, but the boost! Annihilate, let's go. Firing off another Night Slash. This one is boosted. We see the shield. And the double boost. This Annihilate is +4 attack and ready to run Rampage. Look at the counter. Skarmory gets torn to shreds. They send in Goodra, and honestly, I can't blame the opponent here. They are just in absolute shambles. Shielding up the Night Slash. Annihilate gets finally removed from the field of play, but it KO'd 1 3/4 Pokemon by itself. The double boost, oh my goodness, that is brutal. Cresselia more than happy to absorb Aqua Tails here. Aqua Tail not going to be particularly threatening. Cresselia is going to look to overfarm significant energy. Honestly, a Grass Knot probably would have been enough to KO, but a Moonblast does cover for a potential switch out. And in the back, oh no, it's Quagsire. Grass Knot into a Mudboy. Far too much damage, and the opponent concedes the match without even seeing Electros. All in all, Volt Switch on Electros is a very nice upgrade, especially with the nerf to Spark this most recent season. It went from having a terrible fast move to a pretty good fast move. However, the important question is, does that actually make it good? And I would have to say my answer is no. Being a mono electric type already puts you on the back foot. Add to that a lackluster stat product with overall very high attack. Unfortunately, it's not doing itself a lot of favors. I do think that it's worth playing the Community Day and getting one purely because we've seen Pokemon like this excel in limited metas. So potentially in limited metas down the road, I could see this being a very interesting core breaker. An electric type that actually has an ability to beat dragons is a pretty valuable one, because that electric dragon coverage combination isn't something that we often see. So while it's not necessarily meta shaking for the Open Great League, it's a pretty interesting shiny, at least when evolved. As a Dynamo, you barely can't see the difference there, but it's a pretty interesting shiny when evolved. So all in all, I do think it is worth playing and grabbing some decent ones, purely because it could be a future limited cup beast. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.